Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for our Parent University session. We appreciate you taking some time to join us and to, listen to this wonderful information that we have today. So we wanted to introduce our interpreter for this evening, Ms. Viridiana Gutierrez. So we want to thank her for doing this for us. So thank you, Viri. At this time, I'd like to introduce our RISD Transition Services Coordinator, Kara Heyman. And Kara, I'm gonna pass it on to you, and you can move forward with tonight's presentation.
Great. Thank you, Miguel. Hi, I'm Kara Heyman, and I am the Transition Coordinator in Richardson ISD. And I'm excited tonight to bring in a guest speaker on a topic who's much more knowledgeable than we are in the district. Tressie Weeks from Weeks Law Firm is here to share with you information on saving while on Social Security, so ABLE accounts and other resources. And Tressie has been a great supporter of Richardson Schools, and I know she's the best to answer any of your questions. So we'll start by hearing her presentation. You can ask questions in the chat, or you can wait till the end and we will make time to answer any of the questions that you have. So I'm going to turn it over to Tressie Weeks. Thanks for being here, Tressie.
Thank you, Kara. Well, I appreciate the introduction. Again, my name is Tressie Weeks. I'm an attorney with the Weeks Law Firm in Plano. And what our firm does is we help families plan for the future of your child. So we do special needs trust, estate planning, guardianship, and guardianship alternatives. Tonight, we're going to talk about ABLE accounts. So I'm going to share my PowerPoint with you. First, we'll talk about what is an ABLE account. So ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience Act. This was a federal law that was passed. It's actually part of the Internal Revenue Code, Section 529A. Texas also passed an ABLE account statute as well. So every state has an ABLE account statute. An ABLE account allows an individual with disabilities to save up to $100,000 without affecting their eligibility for SSI and Medicaid. They can put in up to $15,000 per year. It has to be used for disability-related services. The one thing that most people do not understand is the Medicaid Payback, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. So an ABLE account can be created either by the person with a disability or somebody else can open it for them. But the beneficiary, the person with a disability, is considered an owner, regardless of who has signatory authority on that account. But you can only have one ABLE account for that individual. So we can't have a bunch of grandparents opening ABLE accounts. If there's more than one ABLE account, your child could lose their government benefits. So where do you open these? So these are opened online. The most common programs that we use, Texas has an ABLE program, so it's texasable.org. But also Ohio has a really good ABLE program, and you don't have to be an Ohio resident. It's called stableaccount.com. That's the website. Those are the ones that we use the most often. A person can open up an ABLE account if they were disabled or blind prior to the age of 26. Now, Biden's administration has proposed increasing that age to 46. So if somebody were disabled before the age of 46. So you might watch and see if that happens. But for right now, it's for someone who is disabled before the age of 26. Now, they have to have been determined to be disabled. So if the individual is receiving SSI, Social Security disability, something like that, the Social Security Administration has made a determination that that person is disabled. If your child has not had that determination by the Social Security Administration, you can submit a doctor's certification that your child meets the SSA criteria. So let's talk about funding, getting money into this account. You can only have $15,000 in contributions per year. Now, anybody can contribute to it, but only $15,000 per year. And only $100,000 is exempt against SSI. So if you have more than $100,000, your SSI will be suspended, but you retain eligibility for Medicaid. If you're not getting SSI and you're only getting Medicaid, you can have up to $370,000. I don't recommend that, and I'll tell you why in a few minutes. So contributions into this account are made with after-tax dollars, but it grows tax-free. So some people kind of call this like an IRA for a person with disabilities. So some income tax advantages to this account. But I want people to understand that if, let's say your child is working and they're making wages, those wages count against your child as income for SSI and Medicaid purposes. So when it's earned income, that reduces their SSI check 50 cents on the dollar. So if your child earned $500 one month, that will reduce their SSI check by $250. Now, some people think if they have that paycheck direct deposited into the ABLE account, then it won't count as income. That is not true. That will still count as income to your child, even if you have those wages direct deposited into the ABLE account. So that's not what it can be used for. Now, child support, when your child is an adult, that child support counts against your child for eligibility for SSI Medicaid. And again, I've heard rumors or people say, well, you can have the child support direct deposited into an ABLE and it doesn't count against your child. That is wrong. Child support will count against your child even if it's direct deposited into the ABLE account. Now, if child support goes into a special needs trust, then it does not count against your child. And that's a different topic. And I encourage you to listen to one of my special needs trust webinars to learn more about how child support can be paid into a special needs trust and used monthly for your child in such a way that it doesn't affect your child's benefits. So your child can get their SSI and the child support. So by depositing something directly into an ABLE account, it does not change the nature of whatever that is. But if you remember, for SSI Medicaid to be eligible financially, your child cannot have more than $2,000 in monthly income. It's actually about $2,300, and they cannot have over $2,000 in countable resources. They have to meet the income limit and the resource limit. So resources is what you and I would call assets. The thing about it is that the money in the ABLE account does not count as a resource or an asset. So that's an important thing to remember. So you can have more than $2,000 in an ABLE account and it does not count as a resource. So just always distinguish income from resource. Now, contributions into an ABLE account have to be in cash. You can't put stock or an investment account in an ABLE account. It has to be cash. So typically you would just have that money electronically transferred from another bank account, or you would write a check. So no stocks or securities in this account. Now, there are some circumstances in which you can contribute more than $15,000 per year. One of them is called the Able to Work Act. And Able to Work Act is a little bit different. That means if your child works and they don't contribute to a 401k or an IRA or some kind of employer-sponsored retirement plan, then they can deposit more into an ABLE account without affecting their benefits. They have to be under the federal poverty level. It's fairly complicated, but some of your children may be eligible for this. Another thing you can do is you can roll over money from a 529 education account into an ABLE account. So let's say that you or maybe grandparents created 529 education accounts for all of the children or grandchildren. And these are taxable or tax savings accounts that can be saved for college. So what if you created a 529 account for your child, or the grandparents did, and it turns out your child's not going to college? Well, you can roll it over from a 529 education account to an ABLE account if it's the same beneficiary. But keep in mind, you're limited to that $15,000 per year. Now, stimulus payments, if your child is getting COVID stimulus payments from the government, they have to spend that money within 12 months or it counts against them as a resource. So what if they don't want to spend it? What if they want to save that money? Well, they could put that money over into an ABLE account and then they don't have to spend it right away. So who manages the ABLE account? It can be managed either by the person with a disability or an authorized representative. You do not have to have guardianship in order to manage an ABLE account for your child. The account has to be used for the benefit of the designated beneficiary, which would be your child. And it has to be used for expenses that are related to their disability. So what can it be used for? Well, the Social Security Administration has told me they're going to define related expenses broadly. So the account has to be used for qualified disability related expenses. What does that mean? Really, if it's, as long as it's used for your child, you're good. So they could use it, like for example, if you open an account with the Ohio ABLE program, they have a debit card that you can get connected to that, and then you can use that debit card to use up the ABLE account. So what can you use it for? You can use it for education, housing, transportation, living expenses, health and wellness, assistive technology, personal support, legal fees. But really, you can use it even if your child wants to go to the movies or go out to eat or get a haircut or massage or get their nails done, whatever. It can be used for any of those things. It doesn't have to be related to their particular disability. So it's interpreted pretty broadly. But keep in mind, it can only be used for your child. So if your child is going to a movie, they can buy their ticket and their popcorn with it. They cannot use it to buy their friend's ticket or popcorn. But what's cool is that you can use the ABLE account for food and shelter without reducing SSI. So as you probably know, if you know SSI, the maximum amount this year is $794 a month. And it's supposed to be used for food and shelter. And if somebody else provides food and shelter, that can reduce their SSI by 1/3. It can be reduced dollar for dollar or a third. An ABLE account can be used for food and shelter, and it does not reduce the SSI by 1/3. And this is huge. This is often how we use this. I need to pull up my next screen here. All right. Now, what if you use it for housing? There are some special rules. So let's say that your child is living in an apartment or a group home and you're paying $1,000 a month for that. Let's say you want to pay it through the ABLE account. When it's used for housing, if you take the money out, you have to use it for housing in that same month. If you take it out and keep it for an extra month, intending to use it for housing, it will count as a resource. So if you're going to use the ABLE account for housing, I would use it in the same month of distribution. So housing, when you're using the ABLE account for housing, the Social Security Administration will look at the intent. How did you intend to use it? If you take it out and intend to use it for housing and use it for something else, that could cause a problem. So, so just be careful if you are using for housing. So you've got this money in the account. How do you use the money? How do you make distributions? So again, with the Ohio program, you can have a debit card. There's also a credit card. And if you've heard me speak, you've heard me talk about this. It's called a True Link Financial Card. this is like a credit card, and you could take money from the ABLE account and load this credit card. So let's say that you wanted to give them $500 a month. You could take $500 from the ABLE account, load this credit card, but with a TrueLink card, you can limit where it can be used and what it can be used for. So this is a very helpful tool. Now, keep in mind when you're using this account and you're making distributions, your audience is going to be a Social Security worker, because they may look at this to see, are you using it for qualified disability related expenses? Are you using this properly? Are you using it just for your child? So I would recommend that you keep receipts of everything that you use it on, as well as you're going to have your debit card statement or your credit card statement. I would recommend that you scan it. If you you can get a scanning app for your phone and take a picture of receipts and then save it. Find some app that will save those for you. And that way you've got that copy if the Social Security worker wants to see that, because whenever you have to file your annual report with the Social Security Administration, they may ask you questions about your ABLE account and may want to see those records. So just keep in mind they are your audience. So how do ABLE accounts affect SSI? Interest on it. So let's say that it's invested, because you do have investment options with the ABLE account. So let's say it's invested and it earns interest. Well, that's not considered income to your child for SSI purposes. If you make a distribution from the account, it's not considered income to your child, even if it's for food and shelter. Now, these accounts have income tax benefits, because again, they can earn money on it and it's not taxed. That interest in earnings is not taxed to your child. So the great thing about these is it doesn't require your child to be impoverished in order to receive benefits. They can save money. But it also is a cool way to give your child financial independence. You could give them this debit card or the TrueLink card, and then they get to choose how to use that if that's appropriate in your situation. And so especially when you've got adult children that don't need as much assistance, they might want to be able to use that. And when they go to the movies, they want to use that card without looking different or something like that. So this is a useful tool. So another way we've used it is, let's say that you've got a special needs trust for your child, and the trustee wants to make a distribution from the trust for your child's care. A trustee of a special needs trust can make a distribution into an ABLE account. So again, let's say that the trustee of a trust wants to give your child $500 in spending money. Well, they could put $500 into an ABLE account, and then the child would have that debit card, the child or the child's caregiver, whatever's appropriate, and then they can spend that money without having to ask permission from the trustee for every little purchase. So again, if they wanted to, do some social activity or get their hair cut or whatever it is, they won't have to go through the trustee to do that. So this has been a useful tool for trustees. Now, most distributions are not counted as income for SSI purposes or for IRS purposes. But here's the main thing I want you to remember today is the major drawback of an ABLE account is that it has a Medicaid payback provision. That means that when your child dies, whatever is left in that account is going to pay Medicaid back for anything they have spent on behalf of your child from the date the account was open. Now, your child may not be receiving Medicaid today, but they might be in the future. And this includes Medicaid waiver programs like HCS and CLASS. So be aware of that. I've had several clients come in recently where their financial advisor encouraged them to open an ABLE account as a way of tax-free savings for their child, but the financial advisor didn't tell them about the ABLE account. So if you're putting a bunch of your money in this ABLE account as a way of saving, you might be making a donation to the government. So it might not be doing what you want. So be aware of that Medicaid payback. So I don't recommend that you use ABLE accounts as a way to save the parents' money for the kids. Because again, let's say that you save $15,000 every year and it gets up to $100,000. You've had income tax, like if it earns income that year, let's say it earns $1,000 in income, you're not paying income tax on that. Your child's not. But let's say then your child passes away. All of that could go to Medicaid. Versus if you kept that money, if you kept that $100,000 in your personal name, and then it goes into a special needs trust upon your death, that's a third-party special needs trust. It does not have a Medicaid payback provision. So whenever your child dies, it's not going to Medicaid. It's going to go to whoever you have named as a remainder beneficiary in your trust. So your trust might say that upon your child's death, it goes to your other kids or to other family members or a charity or whatever. So if you keep the money in your name, it's not going to the state. So keep that in mind. Now, other disadvantages of ABLE accounts is that your child could be subject to fraud or financial exploitation. So somebody could, if there's a debit card, somebody could force your child to make ATM withdrawals. They could, if your child's not under a guardianship, they could try to get your child to sign a power of attorney. Money in these accounts might not be protected from divorce or creditors, so it may not have some of the same protections of a trust. So let's talk about when we use them, because not everybody needs an ABLE account, but there are certain they're very helpful. First is if your child is working and they want to earn save their money. They can only have up to $2,000 in their account, and if they're getting close to that, they could put that over into an ABLE account and save that and have no problems with that. We've also used it for small gifts and inheritances. So let's say that your child inherited $10,000 from Aunt Betty. Well, they don't want to use it right away. Well, we may not want to put it in a special needs trust. We might just put that in an ABLE account, and then that can be used whenever the family decides. You can use it again to roll over from a 529 education account into an ABLE account if it's the same beneficiary. But the cool thing is you can pay rent and food. So we'll do some scenarios in a few minutes. So let's compare ABLE account to special needs trust. So special needs trust obviously is a legal document, but it's a legal arrangement where somebody other than your child is managing the money. That would be the trustee, but it's used for your child, the beneficiary. And it's used in such a way that it does not disqualify your child from benefits. And I just saw a typo there. Now, again, if you use a special needs trust for food and shelter, that can reduce their SSI check by 1/3. Now, the difference between an ABLE and a special needs trust is there's no age limit for the onset of a disability. So if your child became disabled at the age of 27 or 57, whatever, you can still use a special needs trust, whereas an ABLE account is only people disabled before the age of 26. Now, special needs trusts don't have those income tax advantages, but you're also not limited to just one special needs trust. You could have parents and different peer people. You could have as many special needs trusts as the family wants to create. There's no contribution limit for special needs trust. Nobody's limited to $15,000 per year. Assets in a special needs trust are protected from creditors and they're protected from abuse. So your child doesn't have a debit card with a special needs trust. You've got a trustee who's using that money for them. So you can't have somebody taking your child to an ATM and withdrawing money from a special needs trust. So it's protected from people that might take advantage of your child. Also, when you're creating a special needs trust, your child's not required to have a disability determination by the SSA. In fact, often we're creating special needs trusts for families and their child may or may not need government benefits. They may be high functioning and the parents aren't sure. So that's another advantage of a special needs trust. So there are two types of special needs trust. There's a third party and a first party. So a third party is funded with assets from a third party, such as, when we're doing estate planning for the parents, we're typically doing a third party special needs trust for their child. So when the parents pass away, those assets go into that third party trust. So it was never the child's assets to begin with. So the parents are funding it and they are third parties. The great thing about third party trust is there's no Medicaid payback. So if the parents have named this third party special needs trust as a beneficiary of their will, their life insurance, their IRAs, that will go in that money and it will never go to the state. A first party trust is different. It's created with the child's own assets. Let's say that your child inherits $100,000, not $10,000, but $100,000. We could do a first party special needs trust. First party trusts are also used for child support. But typically when we're doing child support special needs trust, that money is usually used every month. So we usually don't have a large sum of money in that. But first party trusts have a Medicaid payback provision as well. So, but most of you are not going to need a first party trust. So let's do some case studies. So let's imagine we've got a individual living in an apartment and the parents are paying $1,000 a month for her apartment. Because the parents are providing food and shelter, her SSI check is reduced by 1/3. So the maximum SSI check this year is $794 a month. If we reduce it by 2/3, that means that her SSI check is $529 a month. But what if instead the parents put that $1,000 of rent in the ABLE account and then immediately paid out rent from the ABLE account in the same month? Well, payments from an ABLE account for rent do not reduce the SSI by 1/3. So she will still get the maximum SSI of $794 versus $529 if the parents had paid it from their own pocket. Now let's do a case study number 2. So let's say that our individual is working and he wants to save money for a car. Well, he can't have more than $2,000 or he'll lose his SSI and Medicaid. So what he can do is he can save money in his ABLE account and then he can buy the car when he has enough money saved. Now, again, let's say that our individual inherited $10,000 outright and they don't want to spend it immediately. Well, they can move that over into an ABLE account and then save it in the ABLE account until that money is needed. Case study number 4. So let's talk about uniform transfer to minor accounts or UTMA accounts. Sometimes you hear them as UGMA accounts. These are our special savings accounts that people can set up for their child. They're custodial accounts. And so the parents or grandparents, whoever created it, they're the custodians of that account. The problem with these UTMA accounts is that once your child reaches the age of 21, your child has a right to all of that money that counts against your child as income, and they will lose their benefits. So, and we've seen more and more where parents have a large amount of money in their UTMA accounts. So let's say the parents put $40,000 in an UTMA account for their child. Well, when their child turns 21, $40,000 counts against their child. So they come to me when the child's 18, and I tell the parents, you can move $15,000 per year into an ABLE account, and then by the time they're 21, there's nothing left in the UTMA account and it won't count against them. Case study number 5. So let's say that the grandparents funded a 529 education account for their grandson of $50,000. So 529 accounts do not count against a child for SSI and Medicaid. Those are not considered an asset of your child because your child does not have a right to that money. So it's different than an UTMA account. When your child's 21, they have a right to it. With a 529, they don't, because whoever set it up can change whoever the beneficiary is at any time. Now, 529 education accounts can only be used for college. So what if, again, their grandson decides not to attend college? What they could do, this money to go to him, they can move $15,000 into an ABLE account, and then the grandson can use that for non-college expenses. So let's imagine a special needs trust. So let's say the parents set up a special needs trust for their daughter. They named that trust as a beneficiary of their wills, their life insurance, their IRAs, 401ks, and the parents pass away. And so there's money in this trust. And let's say that we've got the child is an adult and she's out and about in the community, and she doesn't want to have to ask the trustee every time she wants to spend money. You know, she wants to buy some clothes, she wants to participate in sports, she wants to buy things, you know, whatever it is. She doesn't want to have to ask the trustee for money. And so again, that trustee could put $15,000 into that ABLE account, and then that child could use that debit card for whatever they need. Now, if we need to put limits, like if we're bowling and we need to put bumper pads there, then we might use the TrueLink card, and that way we can limit where that card can be used and what it can be used for. All right, so under case study 7, let's say that parents put $15,000 a year into an ABLE account and they saved up to $100,000. Well, that money was tax-free, no income tax, but then the child dies. That money's going to pay Medicaid back. So essentially the parents have made a $100,000 contribution to the state and federal government, which was not their intention. So in conclusion, ABLE accounts they're low cost. They're a new tool for our toolbox, but in most circumstances, it does not take the place of a special needs trust. So I've got our contact information there, and I'm going to stop sharing. And if you have any questions, you are welcome to put it into the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
It looks like you did a great job presenting, and we don't have too many questions. Again, Trustee, can you just go over, if a family's interested in starting an ABLE account, where should they look to start one of those accounts?
So if they want to use the Texas ABLE program, it's texasable.org. If they want to use the Ohio program, it is Stable Account. I'll put this in the chat box.
So that does not having support from an attorney or anything like that.
Right. No attorney needed. So texasable.org or stableaccount.com. Now, of course, they do charge a fee. It's very reasonable, but there's some kind of a fee, but you set it up online. You don't have to go into a bank. And typically they will give you some, like, 4 options as far as investing it. They might have some kind of funds or something that it could earn some income if you're not going to be using it.
So Trustee, is there a way, if you had a child who you were saving money in an ABLE account and perhaps they became ill ahead of time, are there limitations to what you can pull out at a certain time, or could you, in anticipation of something happening, could you withdraw all the money from the ABLE account at that time?
Well, I would not withdraw it from the account and put it in the parent's bank account, but you could certainly use it. I've had some people who will, let's say your child is in a private school, you could prepay for a year of school or prepay for expenses. I hate to even bring it up, but you can even prepay an irrevocable burial plan. So there are things that you can spend it on for the child, and prepaying for things is fine. If your child has any debt, they can use it to pay down the debt. But it can be used for if your child needs technology, a lot of different things it can be used for.
So we have a question in the chat that says, can a child open an ABLE account before he turns 18? My son will turn 18 in a few months.
Yes, the child does not have to be 18. It can be opened for a minor. It's just a parent or grandparent would want to be the one setting it up. Good question.
It is a good question. Does anybody else have questions?
All right. Well, I hope you guys found this helpful. ABLE accounts are interesting, and they're beneficial in a lot of situations. So again, you can look at texasable.org or the stableaccount.com, and you can read more about them. A lot of really good information. Just make sure you're reading it from a good source, because there's a lot of misinformation out there.
Tressie, we have one more question come in. Can you take one more?
Yes.
Where can I find out about how to determine the amount of rent to set aside in an ABLE account? Child would be living at home.
So if the child's living at home, funneling rent through the ABLE account does not work, unfortunately. So it only works, funneling rent through ABLE only works if your child is living somewhere else and you're paying a third party the rent. It doesn't work when your child's paying you rent.
Even if you had a lease agreement with your child?
Yeah, no, that is coming from their SSI bank account. Okay. So if they're paying you rent of $350, that's coming from their SSI account, and you deposit it into your personal account.
Okay, good question.
Another good question.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I just, I'm so sorry just to jump in there, but what if the parent has property and they, rent it out to the child? Was that okay?
They could, but then that rent would be income to the parents for income tax purposes, and they might have to pay income tax on that rent. So they would have to balance those. We have another question. I would like to know.
A really good one.
Yeah, if this type of help is only for citizens or residents. That's a good question. I don't know the answer. I would recommend looking at the texasable.org and see if they answer it. I have never heard of a citizenship requirement, but that doesn't mean it's there, but I've never heard of that requirement. And certainly parents' citizenship would be irrelevant, but I'm just not aware of any citizenship requirement. But again, you might check those websites and see. But I should find that out.
Miss Salvador had a question. ¿Tenía pregunta, Miss Salvador?
I think she put it in the chat.
Okay, wonderful.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Benitez. I was asking in the chat. Thank you. Thank you so much for answering my question.
Okay, so certainly you have Tressie's information. Just to let everybody know, if you need to revisit this, that within a couple of weeks, this presentation in both English and Spanish will be uploaded onto the Parent University section of the RISD website. So if you'd like to go back and listen to something again, or if you need, Tressie, would you be able to put your contact information in the chat right now? That slide went pretty quickly. I just want to make sure Or you can contact me, Kara Heyman, with Richardson ISD, and I'll put my contact information and we'll get you any help or information that you need. I appreciate everybody joining tonight, and we welcome any further questions.
Well, before we conclude the session, I did want to show our parents how to access that parent corner
Thank you,
page.
Miguel. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. For the RISD, it's very simple. I'm going to share my screen with you, and what you'll do in your search engine, you'll just open up a tab, and all you have to do is type in www.risd.org/, parent corner. And it's going to take you right to that page. And so you'll just see, you can access it by going to the RSD and just hitting parents, and it'll take you here. The parent university tab will, when you click on it, it'll take you all to all the parent university sessions, which will include this one as well. And so you'll just scroll down, you'll have the English and Spanish versions in there. But there's a lot of good information here for our families. So we have digital tools and resources for our families, and also parent, we also have the digital resources here. We've got Google Classroom, Seesaw, Focus, Gradebook, which is really great, and also resources. So we're still building all this out, but this information is here for you guys, for all our families to access. So I just wanted to quickly show you how to access that. So thank you again for joining us this evening, taking a little bit of time to learn. Tressie, thank you again for just this wonderful information for our families. Kara, any other last things, words you want to?
Miguel, do you just want to read in the chat? We had a question about the presentation on guardianship that Tressie had done previously.
Yes, so that will be, we're going to hopefully get that posted tomorrow. We just needed to make sure that the title was there, was correct. So we had to make an edit, and it should be there for our families tomorrow. And we'll pass it on to Kara, and Kara, maybe you can blast it out to all our families that you need this information. So it should be ready for tomorrow.
And Miguel, if I could add one more thing, there's another website, ablenrc.org. I put in the chat box.
Okay.
That's a very good resource for learning more about the ABLE accounts. It's a reliable resource. So it's ablenrc.org. And if you've got questions, that's a great way to find more information.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Okay, I just want to thank everybody for participating. Again, we're here to support you, so please reach out to Tressie or myself if you need some additional information or support. And we look forward to having you participate in another one of our trainings soon.
Wonderful. You, Kara. Thank you, Tressie.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Y'all have a nice evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.